Hello, what's up guys? Welcome again to my channel. My name is Jerry, and on this channel we talk about investment for immigrants. We talked about how to strengthen the immigrant financial condition wherever they live, in any developing nation, in any developed nations, either in Canada, either in the US, either in France, UK. So on this channel, we always provide tools, advice on how to strengthen the financial condition for immigrants. And today we're going to talk about a very interesting subject. There is an endless discussion on whether people should buy their single-family home first, or whether they should invest in a rental property first when they move in a new country. What is the best options? To go ahead and buy a single family house for you and your family, or to start by investing in a rental property and then and think about buying a single family later in your career. So on this video, I'm not going to choose one option for you, but I'm going to provide an objective analysis. I'm going to provide, information for you to be able to take your own decision. So let's take each option and let's discuss what are the pros and the cons, what are the advantages and the disadvantages of each option, okay? Now, let's imagine you have moved to a new country. Hey, congratulations. You got selected for Canadian immigration. You are now a permanent resident from Canada. Or you are a US green card. You won the lottery, and then you have to move to the US. You move to the US, you move to Canada, you settle down, you got a new job, you get paid, and then you start thinking about settling in the country. Like, we are talking about 1 to 2 years or 3 years after you've moved in the country. Now, you and your spouse, you and your family, you think about buying a property, and then you start thinking, should we buy a single family house or should we buy a rental income? Then the discussion starts. Let us consider the first option, okay? The first option is buying a single family house. What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? When you buy a single family house, what are the pros? Let's start by the advantages first, okay? The first advantage is that it's a more nice place for you and your family. You kind of feel like an accomplished dream, okay? You have probably a lot of space for you, for your children, for your spouse. You guys may probably have a backyard, a front yard, enough space, a basement, finished basement, a parking lot. So definitely for the family, for the living space, everything is nice and beautiful. So some people may feel it very important, to have that family space, to have that single detached house. You have your privacy, you have your fence, everything is set, and then life is, nicer. No neighborhood, very nice place to live. Your children will probably be more happier because they will have more space to play around. And that's the first advantage, because the life quality is better when you have a single family. Now, what is the second advantage? The second advantage of having a single family house is that you start building equity. Even in the single family, you take a mortgage, you start paying back your mortgage. So that means you also start repaying the bank. You also start repaying the loan. Then you are building the equity. Let's suppose you get a house for $100,000, and then that means you have a debt of $100,000, right? But the moment you start repaying the bank, the moment you start paying your mortgage, you are now building an equity on your house. So later in the day, you can now refinance the house and get some money. So that is also true for the single family. So the second advantage is that you are building your equity, you are paying back the bank, and then you are making money that you can also refinance sooner or later. Another advantage of buying a single family property, still non-financial advantages, is that you deal less with people. You have full control of your property. That means it's a better maintenance. You have your house. You can be very careful on how you are using your house. The maintenance is better because it is your house. You will take good care of the house. You won't break stuff. You won't damage stuff. So the house may still look in a very good condition after many years of living in, because when it's an owner living in, it's always well maintained than a rental property, because people living in other people's house, they don't care. They just break everything they want. But if you're living in your own house, you'll probably take good care of the house, so you have chances to have a still brand new house even after many years. That's another very important advantage. You living in your own house, you'll be taking good care of your house. Now, what are the other advantages of starting by buying a single family detached? Another advantage of starting by buying a single family detached is that usually for a single family detached, the requirement to qualify for a single family detached are usually lesser than qualifying for a rental property. When you look for a house for you and your family, depending on which country you live in, either Canada or in the United States, there are even programs to help you for down payment. You don't need to have the full down payment amount. Not only the down payment requirement is very low. I think it's usually 5% that you need to gather, 5% or less. But even that 5%, there are so many programs that can help to borrow you the money for that 5%. So basically, you can get a house with nothing in your hand. That's very, very important. You can do that with the rental property. So that is another very important advantage of starting by buying a family house. So you don't need too much down payment as money to bring in, and there are programs out there to help families to settle in the house and stuff. Now, what are the disadvantages of this option? The disadvantages, the first one is that when you start by a single family house, your debt ratio is full. Like you can really invest in the coming years in another rental property, because the moment you get your single family, your credit score will show, your credit bureau will show that you have a mortgage. So it will become very difficult for you to qualify for any additional loan amount, whatever you want to do. Let's suppose after the house you want to buy a nice car. When you go on the credit check, they will tell you, oh, your debt ratio is too high, you can't qualify for the new car. If you want to invest in a property, they will tell you, no, you can't get a new property because your debt ratio is already high, because again, you already got a house. A house is not an income. The house doesn't give you any income. It's a house, you live in there. It's just expenses. You pay the mortgage and you pay the property tax, you pay the all the maintenance, you pay the school tax, and everything attached to the ownership of the house. So that is another disadvantages. So it's your capability to redeploy on any additional investment will be very, very limited. Another disadvantages of starting by buying a house is that if, for example, you and your partner, let's suppose you're married, you and your partner, you guys are committed to the house, so it will affect both of your debt ratio, not only one. And let me take an example to explain this. Okay, let's suppose you guys are married, you have a house, and then you have a debt on the house for 100,000, you and your spouse. Now, your credit bureau won't show 50,000 each of you, but it will show 100,000 for each of you. So you're basically bringing the debt ratio for the whole family down. So that's another disadvantages of buying a house. What is another disadvantages of buying a house? Now it also depends. If you bought a house in a very poor area where the value of the property is not increasing, then you may be losing money at some point in the time. So it's very important to make sure that you buy the house in a nice neighborhood where the value of the property are getting higher and higher over the years, so that you can make sure that the investment will be growing. There is not too much disadvantages of buying a house other than those that I'm trying to think of. Now let's go to the second option. The second option is you're starting by buying a rental property. Let's start by the advantages of buying a rental property. So when you start by a rental property, that means it's a less financial burden for you, because you will be paying the mortgage using the rental income. Don't forget, you will have tenants. Tenants will be paying the rent. You will use that rent to pay back the bank. So it's less financial burden for you. So you can own the property and not bearing the burden of owning a property, because a tenant will be helping. Same thing, you don't care about interest rate because you're not the one paying the house. You don't really care about the maintenance of the house because, again, tenants are paying the rent. If they are paying the rent properly, then you shouldn't have any problem. If you have make sure that the rental property that you have bought, you make your calculation and bought a rental property that is profitable enough then to cover all the expenses attached to the rental property. What is another advantage? Another advantage is that same as the house, after a certain year you can use the equity on the rental property to buy your own house. What is another advantages? Another advantage is that when you do your tax return, for example, you can use the loss, any potential loss from the rental property, to reduce your tax to pay for your personal income tax. So people use the rental property because it's an investment, it's a rental property. So any loss from that rental property can give you an advantage, a fiscal advantages on your personal tax return. What other advantages? The other advantages is that, again, you can build an empire, a financial empire, because you can start with one rental property, and then after some few years you can refinance and buy a second rental property, and so on and so on. So it's a good starting point to build a huge real estate empire if you wish to follow that route. Now let's go to the disadvantages of owning a rental property. The disadvantages is that, again, tenants live in your house. Some tenants don't pay the rent. They don't just pay. You will go to the court, you will do all kind of procedure, but at the end of the day, the bank don't care. You have to pay if the tenant don't pay. That is the risk. You really want to take the time to make sure that any tenant that you are hiring for your property, they have a very good credit score, and then they really have an employment. They have been in employment for a couple of years. They have a very good reputation. You don't want to rent your house to someone who will not be paying your house. That's the first thing first. The second thing is that some people may be paying the rent, but they are damaging your property. They don't just take care of it. They just mess up your house. After a year, you will be spending even more on the maintenance costs to maintain the house. It will cost you even more after they have lived in. So that's another disadvantages. Another disadvantages is that you won't feel, you won't have that good feeling of having your privacy, because when you do the rental thing, that means either you live with people around, or you don't live, or you will continue renting somewhere and then placing your own house for rent. So you won't feel that family feeling of living in a single family house. So if you are someone you like to have a nice house, a nice place, a nice privacy, then having a rental property will maintain you as a tenant somewhere else. either you could have, have your own space and have your own house, so you will not feel that for many years again. What is another disadvantages of a rental property? Let me think about it. Yeah, the same thing, the downgrade of the value of the property. Let's suppose you have bought a rental property in a poor neighborhood, where the value of the property is going down, then you'll probably be losing money after some few years. So it could be very interesting to make sure that you buy the rental property in a neighborhood that is growing, so that your investment can grow together. Yeah, so those are some few advantages and disadvantages of each option, starting by buying your own family house or buying a rental property. So based on those two analysis, which option is the best for you? I'm waiting for your comment on each option and see which one is the best for you. Tell me more about that, okay? Thank you for watching the video, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.